When a woman is in this season of life, right, where she's again got a little bit of life experience behind her, she's not in survival mode. She's now hopefully in the place where she's got a little more autonomy, a little more self-confidence. I think that the challenge becomes giving yourself permission to know that you're...
Welcome to the Life on Purpose Over 40 podcast, where empowerment, elegance, and health take center stage. I'll be your guide on this thrilling journey to outshine your past self. This is a podcast all about transformation. We're plunging headfirst into exactly what health, wellness, style, relationships, and career look like as a woman over 40. You'll be hearing from all the most sought-after global trailblazers and experts. This isn't just about learning, it's about embracing your inner, fierce, fabulous self. Let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Caroline Blinska, and this is the Life on Purpose Over 40 podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, and it is a pleasure to have you here if it's your first time, or if you've been here before, thank you so much for joining me again. Today I have the lovely Laura Gibson with us. She is an amazing person with so much business experience, and I'm so excited to have her here today. She's got over 25 years experience in business, and she is going to be talking about passion, why as women we limit our beliefs and limit what we actually do with our lives. And she'll be talking about everything when it comes to helping you create the life that you're dreaming of and ways that you can actually do it in simple ways. So I'm so excited to have her here. She is an amazing business owner. As I said, she has owned 9 different businesses, from small boutique businesses all the way through to multi-million-dollar wine businesses and a real estate empire. So she has got a lot of great information to give us today. So let's get into it. Laura, it's so great to have you here. I see that you have done a million things with your life already, and you're quite young and you've got a lot more to go. I'm sure that you have got some things up your sleeve, but you have raised close to $1 million for charity. You've been an author. You have been a foster parent. You've got your biological children. How on earth do you have time for everything? I don't understand. We've got a lot in common. You've had 9 different businesses. I've had about 12. I've lost count. Right. And I think that we've both started at a young age doing that. But what makes you so driven, and how do you have the time for it?
You know, I think, first of all, let me say thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. I would say I'm not as driven as I used to be, and I'm not quite as young as I was, right? I'm 57 now. I believe, Caroline, in my early years, I was driven because I had a desire to prove something, right? You know, it was more tied into trying to be enough. And then what I've learned as I've been growing and maturing and going on this journey is that that's not really the best driver. It wasn't the healthiest thing for me to do. So now I really look for what's pulling me forward, right? Instead of me pushing, I look for what the invitations are. And I'm a faith-based person. So I feel like God shows me opportunities. I feel into them, decide if they're the right match for where I am in life. And after I consider what's important for my home and my family, then I can make business decisions. Yeah. So that's it.
That's really interesting. It was a question I was going to ask you later on, because just watching all your Instagram posts, watching your YouTube videos that I've gone through, and because I came across you because I found you through a networking thing, and then I was quite intrigued by your story and also all the work that you're doing. And I had a question for you, but you've just touched on it now, so I want to go into that question. You talked about not feeling like you're enough, and that's something that I wanted to touch on because I think as women, we all have dreams and we all have something that we want to achieve when we're younger, whether it's being a mum, whether it's being a businesswoman, whether it's being an actress or an artist or something. We all have some sort of dream, but we either forget about it or we choose not to move forward with those things. Why do you think that is? Why do you think women get like that and we get into this sort of worry, are we enough the way we are?
Well, I think there's 2 different layers to it, Caroline. I think that there's the not enough conversation, right? We call that the poverty consciousness in our world. And what happens in business often is that a woman she'll have the symptoms. It's almost like being a doctor. She'll have the symptoms of not enough time, right? Working really hard and just not finding enough hours in the day, or she'll have the symptom of not enough revenue. And she may have what looks good on the books, but there's no profitability. There's a place where it never feels like there's enough, financially for her to take care of herself. herself. And those are really signs for us that there's something going on underneath for her as a leader. Now, the second question I heard was, why do women take themselves out of the game? Like, why do they have a dream and then decide not to do it? Many reasons, right? I mean, childbirth, we were just talking about being mamas. That's different. It's becoming more and more egalitarian, but we're still carrying the babies in our wombs. So we're the ones who often choose to take the break from our career choice if we decide we want to be moms. I was in law school when I decided to get pregnant with my son, Jacob, we were just talking about, who's now 30 years old. And after Jacob had been born, it was interesting because I had a decision to make. Do I want to go back to law school and finish, or do I want to go forward with what's happening here, which was I was in the process of opening my second restaurant and I was really enjoying what I was doing. So it didn't feel like a give up. It felt like an opportunity to follow what was present in the moment that was more important or more front of mind. And my husband asked me even, years later, I don't remember exactly how many years, Caroline, but years later he asked me, he said, do you ever feel like you want to go back and finish your law degree? Do you ever feel like you want to be a lawyer? And I said, I don't. At this stage of life, we really need attorneys to represent us who are very specialized in different things in real estate investing and different things that we've done in retail and restaurants. That's the piece, for me, is that I want somebody on my team that's been their expertise and they've got wisdom that comes from experience. I don't want to try to go back and try to figure this all out again. Got another plan for my life. So that's where I go.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that you as a leader yourself and you helping other women understand their purpose, I think it's really interesting that you are very clear on what you do want to do and what you don't want to do. Because I think that that's also another thing that we get stuck on, is that there are lots of options. You could go and do law, you could go and do these other things, but understanding that having the drive to stick to, you've had 9 different businesses, I'm the same, yeah, but still being dedicated to certain things and understanding that maybe that certain career path or that certain business opportunity might not be the best one for ourselves, even though it sounds great to have all of these different things. Right. So I think that, we can juggle a lot of things, but we can also be in a position where sticking to one thing is also important.
Well, I think that there's a little bit of a not now concept instead of a no concept. So what I mean by that is that if something comes through that's an invitation, I feel like it sounds like, again, you've had multiple businesses yourself. Every business that I've owned or started it kind of like gave birth to the next business, right? There, we just use as an example, we had a tasting room and we sold $140,000 worth of clothing in the first 6 months out of a wine tasting room. So I was like, apparently we need a clothing store, right? So we went right next door and opened up a clothing store. So like one business would give birth to the next business and so on and so forth. When something comes in that's a distraction or an invitation or opportunity, what I found over the years that works well for my flow, and I think everybody has to find their own, is this a no or is this a not now? Often I think the overwhelm that kicks in for women entrepreneurs specifically is so many things pulling on us in so many different directions at all the time, at different times, right? And life is happening. Like we make a commitment, I'm going to do this. And then the dog gets sick or the baby gets sick or a loved one gets sick, or an elder needs us, or that something breaks the house. I mean, like literally whatever crap is happening, pardon my French, is happening, right? Life is happening. So how do we stay on track with it? And it's this place of recommitting and renewing our vows, that, really committing to what we said is important to us. I'm a big fan of building our businesses around our lives, not building our lives around our businesses. Yeah. And I think that that's a place that is a slippery slope for a lot of women, is that they can get very engaged with their business. It's like a creation for us, right? It's like we're birthing this gift that we're bringing to the world, and we get very emotionally connected, and we've got to have healthy boundaries. We've got to build a business that's actually providing service without being owner dependent.
So that's interesting what you just said. So how would you go about focusing on something? Let's say, for instance, exactly that. We've started a business. We're in a situation where we're trying to make it work. And then we have, I don't know, someone getting sick, or you're in a situation where you have to help someone. What would you recommend to people to do in that situation? How do you focus? It's easy to say, let's focus, but...
Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to, how do you live your life, right? I mean, do you live your life with intention? or do you live your life on autopilot? And I think if you're targeting women who are over the age of 40 for this conversation, it's not our first rodeo. I mean, most of us have been around for a while. We've had other opportunities to do different types of jobs, not just one thing or another thing, right? So at this point in life, it's like, where do you give yourself permission to choose? What are your priorities? What does your self-care look like? What do your relationships look like? And then where does the business fit in there? What's the purpose of the business? Why do you have the business? The way to focus is to really be, decisive and choose. And I would say that we as a species just had a great opportunity to try this one on, right? It's not even like that the dog got sick. We had COVID-19 and the whole planet got an opportunity to pause and focus. And there was all these invitations online to pivot, pivot, pivot. I was like, no, don't do that. Why change who you be? Why change your purpose? Why change what you're called to do? What's in front of you? What did you decide that you're committed to, that you're going to actually now recommit to and deepen? And the businesses that I saw that really took off and grew during COVID-19 with all the changes that were happening in the world were the ones that were really clear. They had clean business models. They were very simple, and they chose to stay in their lane.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I find that purpose is something that a lot of women don't think enough about.
Mm-hmm.
So where they're saying as women, oh, and I was just telling you that I've been through this, that I've just come back after 3 years on maternity leave.
Yeah.
And I was always in e-commerce and I'd done certain things. And how I got into marketing for e-commerce was that I had a shoe label because my feet are huge and I can't get shoes to fit me. So I started my own shoe label. I became a cobbler. So like you, things turn in from one thing to another.
One thing goes to the next,
and that was just when the internet was starting. We didn't even credit cards online was a new thing. So battling e-commerce at that stage. Then I got into e-commerce and I got into marketing because I was marketing my own business. I had a lot of people telling me how well I did. So I got into e-commerce and marketing and helping other businesses, and it moved through. And now I'm in a situation where I've come back after 3 years on maternity leave and I'm thinking, what am I going to do that will make me happy? And I thought I could easily go, I sold my company to another company and they said I can come back at any time and work with them. And I was like, okay, I've got this opportunity. That would be really easy, but do I want that? And I decided I didn't want that. And I think that sitting down, and I spent a lot of hours, I'm talking easily 50 to 100 hours, sitting there thinking, what do I actually want to do with my life?
Good for you.
And and I think that I did that because I've seen the mistake that so many people have done. I've done it as well in certain businesses. That I was like, why do I own this business? This sucks.
Right.
Why do I want to be in business? So what do you think it is that women need to think about when it comes to having a purpose, working out what we want to do, working out what works for us, and when you say sticking to it, but really discussing what that is? I watched a video of yours, which was fantastic, about the hours that we have. And you jotted out there.
That was fun exercise.
I thought that was really good.
Great. Yeah, fun.
And then you go through these are how many hours everyone has. What are you doing with your hours?
Yeah.
And I thought that was fantastic. So how do we create the life of purpose? Not just having the hours, but then turning that into a purpose.
So I want to rewind a little bit, Caroline, because I think, again, there's multiple questions in the share and in the question, right? And then I think the idea is that how a woman decides to stay on purpose can only happen after she's done that soul searching, right? When you said you spent 50 to 100 hours really going deep and really deciding what makes you happy, what brings you joy. A friend of mine, Katerina Rando, talks often about how our body it's like a thermometer, right? It allows us to know if something's joyful, we feel energized. We don't feel stressed out and tired, right? When we're doing stuff like maybe, for me, it's like maybe I'm going to sit down, I'm going to be crunching numbers, looking at tax returns. Ugh, not my funnest thing in the whole world, but it has to be done. But I have great people around me who are actually, that's their expertise. Let them do their thing. And then I can look at it gently and know that I'm fully supported there. When a woman is in this season of life, right, where she's again got a little bit of life experience behind her, she's not in survival mode. She's now hopefully in the place where she's got a little more autonomy, a little more self-confidence. I think that the challenge becomes giving yourself permission to know that you're capable, you're sourced, you are resourced, you're not alone. You can do a business, you can do a career, you can have different things available for you that fall into alignment with your passion. It's not an either or conversation. I think what I hear often with women that I'm kind of out in the world traveling is the idea that this is what I do for my day job, but what I really like to be doing is, X, Y, or Z. We have the luxury today. There's never been an easier time to be in business than there is today. The fact, I love what you're talking about with the internet. I'm thinking about, like, we had brick and mortar businesses, we had restaurants, we had one website that we put up in 2005 that we never changed until we sold that business in 2014. Like, we didn't even, forget what was e-commerce. There was there was the internet, but we were really nobody was so sure what it was or how it was doing. There was no Yelp, there was no social proof stuff. The whole world's changed for us. So I think it's, you have the opportunity. I have a friend who I just was recently talking to, has a network based in India that has several million women in her network. And I just think, like, how cool is that? That you could actually have an opportunity to really create impact on a beautiful level. She's a very humble person. She's not, a celebrity. She's just a person like you and I. And she just had the right message at the right time to reach the women that really needed to hear it. And I think that's available for each of us when we're aligned with our purpose, when we have congruence, when we're trying to do something because we think we should, or we're doing it because we need to make money. It doesn't always line up the same way.
Yeah, I'm listening to you and I'm like, that's exactly, it's so true. And I think it's important that we remember that. And you spoke about a book that you love. It's called Multiple Streams of Income.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I just want to get some ideas, because there's a lot of women out there that are working the 9 to 5.
Well, I think you're referring to a video that I have out there about, like, kind of the 5 books that every businesswoman should read. This is the one you're talking about. So, that the first book that comes before Multiple Streams of Income is really around Think and Grow Rich. And I think that this goes back to, again, what's in our consciousness? How do we see ourselves? Are we at one, and are we at peace with God, and understanding that everything we need is actually available if we're willing to allow ourselves to receive? That's a bigger issue, right? A bigger question of our tapping into our prosperity consciousness, what's available for us. Multiple Streams of Income is a book written by Robert Allen. It is a great book if you're interested in real estate investing, or multi-level marketing, direct sales type business, or you've got a side hustle. A lot of women now have, in the gig economy, have really cool businesses on the side. They work their day job, they do some other things on the side to express their creativity that brings revenue to them. The concept behind Multiple Streams of Income is that you're not dependent on just one stream. And I feel like more and more women, when they find their flow, when they find their, not only the internal game, but the external game, they start owning their resourcefulness around finances. There's things to learn, right? And I'll just say this, because you had said there was an invitation to give a free gift, right? So I have a book called Stop the Spinning, Move from Surviving to Thriving. And I can tell you that today, as a person who's financially independent, is extremely different than the way I was raised, extremely different than my family for generations, really struggling financially. And I think there are things I learned. I decided that I wanted to learn about money. I went to learn about what's the difference. I went to learn about wealth consciousness. There were a lot of things that helped me heal along the way personally. This happens to be one of those things professionally. I've done really, really well as a real estate investor for many, many years. And I had to learn how to do that. I had to go to class, make the investment, do the first things that I was terrified of doing, invite, a bank to give me a loan when I wasn't really sure my credit was going to be good. I did go through all the steps just like anybody else would in the world. But in Stop the Spending, the second chapter of that book is called Overflowing Abundance. And I talk about being really, 19, 20 years old, working at a bank and writing a check on a Wednesday, taking it to the grocery store to cash, because I knew it wouldn't clear the bank until Friday when my paycheck came in. I was making $4.85 an hour at the time. And I needed money for gas. And what I was doing was illegal. And thank goodness, just like, they didn't come after you for the makeup charge, for the taxes, nobody's come after me for writing those checks. The checks cleared, I paid my bills, but it was that place of living on so much, like, on the edge, really, like, how do I have money to pay for gas to get to work? And so when you see someone today who has it looking like it's together, it's easy to think like, oh, that's easy for them to say. I want everyone to know that, if you're a woman who's seeking to find financial independence, the resources are there for you. And, my book is just one of those places to look and learn about kind of the habits of making money be the easy part of your life. I think that, again, there's way more to your purpose than how much money you make.
That's fantastic. And I'll put that link for the free book into the show notes so everyone can get hold of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think everyone will be very grateful to be able to read that.
Thanks.
What are 3 things holding women back from starting a business?
Confidence. Always, we were talking about this kind of thing like that. Can I do it? Who am I to do it? Kind of all those little monkeys on our back that come along with it. And I would say, the way to address that is there one other person out there who's doing what you want to do? Can you see someone else being successful in this business, in this industry, in this career? If they can do it, you can do it too. And Rome isn't built in a day, right? I mean, it takes us time. And so there's a place of having patience with the process, but also getting clear about it. The purpose of business, Caroline, in my opinion, is to provide a service to solve a problem. All businesses at their heart, there's a human that has a problem or a business that has a problem. Somebody's like, hey, I have a better widget. I have a better way to fix that. Those two things come together. You have an exchange, and we call it money, right? The service is provided, money comes in. It's just a dance, right? It's literally at the heart of business, whether you're hungry, whether you need to go see a doctor, and it's just business, right? So if you've got the idea of what you want to do with your business, don't let you be in the way, because there are people out there that need the service you provide, right? So the confidence piece, that we get out of your own way. And the way to do that is be thinking about how many lives can you change, right? Like, what can you do to make a difference? I think the other thing that happens for women often is that they're surrounded with the wrong people. People around you are the people. They say, I don't remember who to give credit to for this, but they say we're kind of like the sum of the top 5 people that we spend time with, right? So if you have grown up like I did in a family of origin where there was constantly a money struggle, there was constantly, the shame around money, there was all these issues. If I go to that source and that environment to get my education for a different way I want it to be, the people in that space are like, hey, you're crazy. That's never going to work, right? Because their belief and their reality is that life is hard. Money is impossible to make. If I only had money, then I'd be a better person. Well, guess what? I've been rich, I've been poor. You're still the same person. You get up and pee. It's like, this is life, right? So I think that's the thing, is be very careful, be protective of who you spend your time with. I will tell you that the most successful women that I know, and what I measure of success is not only financial freedom, but time freedom and the emotional freedom to really live their purpose and contribute in the world. Always protective of their time. We all get the same 24 hours. You're talking about watching the video, that's got to be the thing that comes up often for women is, how am I going to afford this? I don't have time to do it. You all have the same amount of time as I do, as Caroline does, not to feel guilty about, but what is taking your time that you're giving your time to that may not be serving your bigger vision.
Yeah.
That's the piece. So I think confidence is one of the things. I think the environment and who you're around is the piece, number 2. And then I think the third one is really, again, how are you spending your time? If you're committed to something, and I have a friend, Felicia Cersei, who says this. I always try to give credit where I hear great quotes. She says, if you want to know what someone's committed to, look at their checkbook and look at their calendar. And it shows, like, where do we spend our revenue? Where do we spend our money? Where do we spend our time? It's very evident what you consider important, because that will be in your calendar. It'll be in your checkbook.
Very, very true. I'm listening to what you're saying, and it just reminds me of conversations that I've had with past clients before I went on maternity leave.
Yeah.
And women who were sitting there frustrated. I can't take my business to the next level. It's not going to the next level. And then the simple question of, who cleans your house? Oh, yeah, I don't have time to do anything because I'm cleaning my house all the time. I noticed in your video, I had to laugh. That one about the time. You mentioned like all the things that you do, how you spend your time. And you didn't go into things like cleaning. That was not one that you
I don't spend
brought
my
up.
time cleaning.
Yet, all the women that are not getting the financial freedom that they want, cleaning their house is always what I have found, something that has to come up from them all the time as an excuse.
Interesting.
Oh, I have to clean my house. I don't know if you noticed that, but I
Well,
noticed that with a lot of people.
yeah, I think again, there are a lot of people out there that love to clean and it turns them on. It does not turn me on. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't. And even as a young woman, when I was making, which I think I was making about $25,000 a year when I had my first real job, right? I worked for an insurance company. I hired someone to come and clean my house. I mean, that's like what I spent my money. I spent my money, my rent, and my car payment, my insurance, the stuff, and had someone, come and clean my house. Probably at that point because I was single, living alone, maybe once a month or something. But so that it would be clean. But no, I just, and I'm not saying that a clean environment is not important. I think it's very important. Your environment really, really indicates, it supports you. A clean environment, a healthy environment supports you. But using cleaning as an excuse to not do what you're really here to do, that you're uniquely designed to do, is not in my world.
No,
Yeah.
my thing as well. So that's always one of my first things, like get a cleaner, get that task out of the house, because like out of your life, because then that's at least 1-2 hours a week that you can concentrate on your business. So, or in my case, with so many kids, more. I've got 4 step-kids as well, so we've got a
You've got a lot going on.
Yeah,
you've got a lot going on.
Now I want to ask you. You keep on talking about money not being the driver for success. What is success to you? What do you think a woman should look at as being success?
I think it depends. I think it's really personal, Caroline. I really do. I think it's a very personal journey. And I think, we know, I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I took a class on psychology 101 at a community college, right? I started community college, went to state school, went to law school. I can tell you that what stays with me today in my work, and I've been, really blessed to be all over the world, speaking and leading and communing with women in different cultures, and just really this incredibly juicy work that I get to do today, is that there's a hierarchy of need. There's a guy named Abraham Maslow that wrote a book all about humans and our hierarchy of needs. And basically what he says, without me butchering it, but keep it super simple, is that the bottom rung of this kind of pyramid is survival mode. Right. So as I was on a meeting earlier today talking about being in Africa and walking with the women there to the river to gather the water that they needed to put in these great big barrels. They're so strong. My daughter and I were there, put those barrels on their back, walk back to their house. I mean, this is about 5-6 hours a day. I mean, it's not a simple thing to get the water to boil, to feed their babies. Right. And so that's that like base level survival, right? And that's your sufficiency, your food, your resources, as far as a roof over your head, a safe place to live. Running water is elective. It's not the same thing. Education is elective, by the way. It's not a given. So that survival mode is where most people are. What happens in the developed world where you and I live is that we have access to resources. We have things like access to free education. We have things like access to, running water and air conditioning and heating and, just this place of a little bit of ease, public transportation, but we're not aware, because it's all we know, that we've skipped the survival mode, right? So that's where the poverty consciousness comes in. It comes in with this idea of like, there's not enough because somebody's been telling us we're too short, we're too tall, we're too white, we're too black, we're too fat, we're too skinny. Whatever the too much is the flip side of that coin. You're not enough, right? If you just had more, did more, you'd be more, right? That's a made up thing. So for a woman who lives in sub-Saharan Africa, her measure of success is that somehow she creates a vehicle for means, and hopefully she's able to do that maybe through a healthy means of a job opportunity or a business where she can generate enough money to come up with $150 a year so that she can send her child to school. Because what we know is that education changes everything. Education absolutely changed the trajectory of my family, and I've watched it all over the world. When a child has an opportunity to have an education, they now have a possibility, and they can have a different opportunity than their parents can have, right? No different in my family. So the piece around success for her may be like, hey, I was able to send my kid to school. I was able to feed my child. The thing of success for you may be, hey, I've got this beautiful opportunity to reach people with my message, and I feel like I've got a story to tell, and my journey's been pretty fascinating, and I want to inspire other women to tell their journey, right? That might be your measure of success. For me, when I reached the next level of Maslow's hierarchy is kind of survival, and then awareness of the other, then you reach this top level called self-actualization, which comes after a lot of therapy and after a lot of personal development work, right? You know yourself and who you are, you've got confidence, and you can pretty much do anything, right? I lived in the space of, this is fantastic. And I started being asked to speak and lead, and I wasn't a speaker. I had not written any books. It was nowhere on my purview. I was like, I think you got the wrong person. Why don't you go and give that to my friend Debbie? She would love that. That's what she's looking for, right? But I kept getting the invitations and I kept getting the nudge. And that's really how I feel God speaks to us, Caroline. I feel like there's these opportunities that come, and, it's kind of like a knock at the door, and then they keep coming and they keep coming. And if you're in alignment with it, you'll put your toe in the water and go. And what was in my opportunity that I couldn't see, if that makes sense, was the opportunity to not just be about myself, was the opportunity to build a business that's a philanthropy first business that can empower women in the private sector, women like you and I who have businesses, and create a vehicle where business owners can connect with people who actually are struggling for access to resources. And what happens there is those who need resources get it. But guess what happens for the women who are the business owners? They get to give. There's a space beyond self-actualization. It's kind of like we went to the pyramid and now the pyramid went this way. There's a space beyond that is in the giving zone, right? Where we get to give. We have businesses that get to create sufficiency and provide for our families. And from the profit, from the surplus, we get to actually have business be a force for good. We get to have the opportunity to help give an education to a child who may not have it otherwise, right? To help give meals to people who, are children of God. They deserve to be fed. Right? Yeah. So that's the space that I think success is for myself and the women I hang out with. But we all had to start down here, right? We had to figure out how to get through the survival mode and get to be aware of the other in the community, to learn about ourselves and get confidence, and then move into the space of we get to give.
Yeah, it's beautiful and it's fantastic. And I think that I think that you've explained it in a really nice way that gives other women the understanding of what that ladder looks like for them.
Yeah,
what's next for them, wherever they are on that journey at the moment, that they've got somewhere to go next. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, good.
I want to move on to the quick round and ask you some questions. What are 3 steps every woman should take as soon as possible, whatever it might be? 3 different steps.
Okay. So you're giving me a really broad, like women everywhere. Okay, this is out the world. Okay, so the first thing I will say is take care of your health. I mean, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And, without getting to the stories behind the stories, my husband was diagnosed terminal in 2017. I was sitting in a hospital and they were telling me he's going to die. You're going to take him home tonight. He might die this weekend. I immediately went into like, what? Obviously the shock in the system. And who can help me with this, right? Like I didn't automatically just assume that because this doctor was telling me it was over, that it was over. When we have a healthy body, it's easy to take it for granted, right? We aren't in pain, so we don't really know what's happening. So it's easy to take that for granted. I will tell you that your spirit, your essence, your purpose, your beingness requires a physical form to enjoy life, right? It's our taste, our sense of touch, we get to touch another person. All of this joy, all this yumminess comes. If we don't take care of our body, none of that's going to matter. Okay, we're going to miss out on so much richness of life. So I would say, don't wait for the wake-up call. Don't wait for, a death, divorce, or disease to understand that you only get one body. So please take care of your body. The second thing that I think every woman needs to do is she needs to own her financial freedom. And that is a journey. Again, depending on where you come from, there's a lot of inner work to do that's actually, in my opinion, more important than the outer tactics. The outer tactics are not that difficult. That's why I said, if you want to read, chapter 2 of my book, Stop the Spinning, I'll tell you exactly how I grew up in a family of violence and poverty and sexual abuse and all the things, the messaging that was very negative and would have kept me in that environment as a normal. I moved right out of my family's house into a relationship where I was living with a man who beat me on a regular basis. And that was my normal, to live in a domestic violence situation. It wasn't until there were women who saw me when I couldn't see myself, who raised a hand and said, hey, come here, let me talk to you. Things can be different, right? Just again, for the grace of God and for the women who were really angels on earth who saw me as a young woman and helped me move to a place of healing so I could go up my own ladder, right? One of those places is around financial sufficiency. And so financial sufficiency and financial independence does not mean you have to have millions of dollars in the bank. It's really not the secret, right? The secret is to live within our means and to really plan for the things that we want to have. And it's not rocket science, and it doesn't take a lot of years. Every day that someone can start this, if they haven't already done it, is the right day, right? If you haven't worked on your finances, today's the right day to work on it. It's okay, right? Same thing with your health. If you haven't taken good care of yourself, take care of yourself. Go watch my video on self-care. I get asked about this a lot, and I think it's important. Take care of this body. It's a precious gift for you. And then I think the third thing every woman that I have ever met needs to do is to be more kind to herself, to be more generous, to really be patient with the process. I believe if we're alive and breathing, God is not done with us yet. We are here for a reason. We've got opportunities in front of us. Be patient with the process. We can see what we can see. I feel like we've been shown things at our capacity. Be gentle. In the same way you might be gentle with a child or gentle with a pet. Be gentle and more kind to yourself. And you'll see that, you start to blossom in that self-love.
Lovely. Those are 3 things and you're right, take action immediately. They're fantastic.
Yeah. Good.
What is one word that will describe your future?
That's so good. What's one word that will describe my future? Expansive.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that on Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, I've gone through my own health journey over the last few years, and I've just really had this amazing opportunity to tune up some things. And I just feel like even though I am advocating for health, and I've been a yogi for 15 years or more than 15 now, 17 years. I'm a really active person, and I had some genetic things, that needed to be addressed. And so I had the luxury of choosing. I had the luxury, Caroline, of taking a step back and I had 4 surgeries in 7 months this last year. And I was in bed for almost 2 months straight. So it was pretty, a big thing for a person like me who loves to go. But I knew that this was coming into my life as an opportunity. It really was. It was an opportunity to heal some things and to really move forward even stronger than I was before. And I'm fascinated to see where God takes me next.
Fantastic. We are too. Yeah. We're looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, thank you.
And on that note, we'll put your link to your Instagram in the show notes so people can follow you from our show notes.
Yeah.
And what is one of your core values or beliefs that has shaped your actions that you have made your decisions in life?
Okay, so this is a big, juicy question, and I'm going to tell you why. I held a retreat in April. I'm working on another book right now called The Led Life. It's really about my journey with faith. And I thought, I'm going to bring together about a dozen of my girlfriends. We're going to go to the mountains and just have a conversation about, their journey. And they came from all different traditions. And I wanted to see, where did they learn to trust themselves? Where did they find that inner guidance? Where did they have their own communion with God? And, what happened, this is why I'm telling you the story, is that on day 1, I started with an exercise about core values. Now, this was supposed to be hey, what do you value? Let's write it down. Here's a little circle of life. Let me tell you what I do as a gratitude practice every day is give gratitude for the things that I value. And what that does, Caroline, is it strengthens my experience, right? So before I get out of bed, I'm actually already fired up about all the goodness in my life, right? It's just literally the way I start my day. And the women that my 12 girlfriends would end up being 19 girlfriends, they would not get off of it. I kid you not, for a day and a half, that's all we did was talk about values and why they matter and what's happening here, right? So most people will say, when you ask them what do they value, they value love, they value health, they value their careers, they value their families. This is the thing. We have a whole exercise about how to name those and have them be powerful motivators to move you forward in the world in alignment with your values. So I have 7 of them. I have 7 core values that I practice gratitude around every single day. I don't know if that answered the question, but they're probably like many people without giving you, making this a 25-hour interview. My values are around health. They're around abundance. They're around connections and relationships. They're around the opportunity I have to make contribution in the world. They're around gracefully growing, being kind to myself, some of the things I've shared with you today. And I had to add a value when I created my own circle of life, which was many years ago. I had to add a value about having fun, because I had a lot of leftovers from my childhood that, work was valuable, but fun wasn't allowed. right? So now I
Good.
value
That's my
adventure fun.
next question is, what's a fun
You're fun.
fact about you?
Oh my goodness sakes. What's a fun fact about me? So a fun fact about me is that when I was a child, I always wanted to be a ballerina. Okay.
Okay.
And at age 27, after I gave birth to my son, Jacob, who is now 30, so you do the math, I'm 57, I started taking ballet classes at a community college. And I thought it would be like relaxing and anything but. But I took ballet lessons for 10 years.
Fantastic.
Yes, and I loved it. And when it was time to be complete, it was time to be complete. It was time for me to move into yoga. But it was, something that people don't know about me.
That's really nice. So, because ballet is very, very good for your body. So
Yes,
that would have
strong.
kept you very, very toned and very
Keep me
athletic.
strong.
It's a very,
Yeah.
strong. Fantastic. And what's one of your passions outside of work now?
Oh, what's my passion outside of work now? It's an interesting question because my work is so crazy cool. You know what I mean? Like I created what's grown into now for the brand of Limitless Women as a vehicle to really marry my love of giving back and charity work with my knowledge of building private sector businesses. I had like 2 feet in different worlds for many years while I was building my private sector businesses. I was always volunteering in nonprofits, which you see in my bio, and I'm growing and growing in my contribution there. So to have a business where those two things are married is like heaven on earth for me. And the thing I love the most is to be with my children. The fact that my adult children choose to spend time with me. My daughter just moved here. I moved to Texas and she followed me. She lived in Los Angeles and she followed me and bought a house here. And then my son just got accepted to medical school here in San Antonio. So to get to spend time with them as adults, the fact that they want to spend time with me is, you want to cry. It's such a blessing in my life.
Oh, that's really sweet. I have one more question for you.
Okay.
And this last question, first I want to tell everyone, I did mention it before, that YouTube video that is about it's on your channel on YouTube. It's the 5 books that you recommend.
Oh, that I recommend, yeah.
Do you have one of those? I'm going to put a link to that actual video as well because I thought it was really interesting. Do you have one book that you recommend, or is that all 5 that you recommend?
Well, it's a great question. I'll tell you, it's so interesting because you're, as a person who, you're a marketing whiz, I can tell all your presence, your branding is just gorgeous, Caroline. I want to tell you that again. I think I told you that in an email. What's interesting for me is that when we sent that out, we do a free gift on Fridays. It's called Free Gift Friday, freegiftfriday.com. When we sent out that video, it was like our highest click-through rate of anything that we've put out. I'm like, here I am teaching all this stuff about business and all these good things about life, and all people want to know is what books to read. So hallelujah. I'm glad that it worked and people are excited about it. That particular video is around business books, right? And I would say the most impactful book, and I feel like I say this, I learn from the Bible constantly. I learn from stories and pieces like that. So I would say that's probably the most impactful book for me. The most impactful, life-changing book that is more in the natural, right? More in the regular world, if you will, more than in the spiritual world, is a book written by a woman named Louise Hay called "You Can Heal Your Life." And someone handed me that book when I was young and anorexic and in a domestic violence relationship. And it coincided with another woman reaching out and helping me go and find counseling that I could afford on a sliding scale. The timing of it was just so very life-changing and catalyzing for my life. And I think there's some simple principles that just opened my mind to what was possible for life to be joyous and fun and free. And, I'm a typical overnight sensation. If you fast forward, that was I was 20. So let's say, 37 years ago. But that book, I think I bought, hundreds of copies at this point for friends and family and just said, hey, you can heal your life. It doesn't have to be so hard. I think that's probably the book I would recommend every woman to read if she's struggling with what's next.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, that is fantastic. And there's so much insightful information.
Good, thank you.
And I think after so many years in business, of course, you've got so many more things that I'm sure you can share. So I'd love to get you back here at another stage.
Thanks.
And you did mention a few things that you've got some stuff coming up. So I'm sure that the next time we speak, you're going to have some more information of new things that you've got in the works as well.
Always.
You're
always. Yeah.
definitely not someone that sits around doing nothing. That is for sure.
No. And even when I was sitting around healing, it was an interesting thing because I was healing. There was something in that, right? Giving myself permission to do that. It's beautiful. If someone wants to connect with me, I know you're going to share our limitlesswomen.com. It's easy to find me online. The free book, laurafreebook.com is pretty easy. freegiftfriday.com. So we've got great little URLs. Come be in our playground. Just an amazing women-based community of women supporting women. And so however we can lift you up, it's always our pleasure to do that.
Definitely. I'll put all your information in the show notes. And Laura, it was fantastic having you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you for joining us. And we'll definitely have you back on again soon.
Thanks, Caroline. It's really been fun.
Thank you, everyone.